Good evening, Bree. All right, let's get started. We are diving into ZipForms today. So I started to log into it and then I realized I probably shouldn't do that until I get on. So in case you don't know how to log into ZipForms, you go to your car.org website. So car.org, car.org, and then it usually brings you to this page. From this page, can you see my screen? No. Yes, you should be able to see my screen. Let's see. Hold on. Okay, just making sure I was sharing the right screen. All right, car.org. It takes you to this page, and then it has access realtor secure transactions there in that bubble. You can also come up here to the transaction center on the top toolbar. Either one works just fine. You're going to go to realtor secure transaction or click that first bubble that I showed you. Either way, that's what's going to get you into your forms library. Then once you get to this page, you're going to click this right here, this Lone Wolf Transaction ZipForm Editions, hit Access Now. And as always, if you have any questions, you can either throw them in the chat box, you can unmute yourself and just ask, you can raise your hand, either way works. If you haven't logged into CAR, it's going to prompt you to put in your login information there. Then it's going to take you to this page. The other thing that's going to happen, it's going to pop up a new window. So if you have your pop-up blocker on, if you're not able to get into it, that could be why you need to allow the pop-up, because once we hit this button here, this continue to transactions, once you've logged in, it's verified your membership, then it's going to open up that new window. So if you've got that pop-up blocker on, it will block you and you will be sad. My computer thinks extra long when I'm sharing my screen on Zoom, so it's normally not this slow. All right, it's almost there. I can feel it. All right, here we go. This is where it might open your screen up to. It may not, it may open you up to the dashboard, which is over here. Maybe. There we go. It may open you up to here. That's your dashboard. I don't like this window. I never use this window. The only reason I log into ZipForms is that I log in for my transactions and for my documents and such. So I don't need like tasks due and what's expiring and recent activity and tasks not started. I don't track any of that in ZipForms. You might decide that you want to. It could be really handy. Keep track of your contingency rules. You could keep track of that all in here, totally up to you, but that's the dashboard. Mine opens up to transactions, which just gives me my list of transactions that I have available. And if your page looks different than mine are in a list format. In the upper right-hand side, there's a box with either lines or a little grid. If you click on that, it's going to change the way that yours display from grid to list. There's no wrong or right way to that. It's just kind of personal preference on that one. If you want your ZipForms to open up to this page over here under the far right-hand side, if we click profile and settings, you click the little bubble where you could have a picture. I do not. You would click profile and settings. So the little human image there in the upper right. That's going to open up all of your settings. I do recommend that you spend some time going through this settings section just to make sure you have everything set up appropriately. You want to make sure it's got the right email, the phone number, it's got your license number in here, your name. Here's where you can add your avatar or your photo. You can sign in security. That's where you're going to change your information. Here's your office information to make sure everything's accurate there. Forms, that's going to tell you what forms libraries you have access to. You can also change here down at the bottom of forms, you can change the active field color, the active text color, the field background, the highlight color. So you can change those colors in this section. Products. that just shows you what you have logged into this system or if it expired. Okay. And then if you go to settings, sorry, I was just double checking something while I was in there. That's where you're going to spend most of your time here after we double check that your information is correct. This is where you choose your signing system that you're going to use. A lot of people use DocuSign. You have to pay for that. It's about $240 a year. It's probably gone up a little bit. There's digital ink and there's Authentisign. The free ones, the digital ink, which is powered by Authentisign. And then there's Authentisign new and improved. I don't know the difference between those two, but they used to be really clunky and not very friendly. So we used to pay for DocuSign. I would say you don't have to pay for DocuSign anymore. I would say just use Authentisign. It's free. It comes with your membership to ZipForms. Free is good. I like free. Okay. Email options. You've got your landing screen. This is where you would change that. If you're logging in, it's taking you to the dashboard and you want to go to your transaction list. This is where you can select transaction list over the dashboard. And then your default view of the transaction list is either your transactions or transactions shared with you. So I have that set to my transactions. Time interval for autosave, I have every 5 minutes. So you can adjust that. Hide global navigation bar while in templates. Auto check PDF documents. For data to be imported into the transaction, I have that on. I don't know what that does. Import template data into transaction when template is applied. I have that on because I'll show you how we're going to set up templates today. And I have applied broker and agent information. So that way it pulls stuff in from the templates. If you want a default interest rate on your mortgage calculator, I don't ever use it in here, but you can change it inside of settings. And let's see here. If you have any other sign-ons like Glide or DocuSign transaction rooms, this is where those links are. Home warranty integration. I don't know. Let's see. We're going to select. Nope. We just had Lisa. She's Fidelity National Home Warranty. It wasn't on there, so I'm just going to hit no. Title integration. Oh, I'm actually going to, let's see if I can select this. Select favorites. Old Republic and 95688. Nope. See if it'll pull over the title information. No, I don't know. Oh, it took her away. Anyways, all those integrations are there. All right, so there you go. Once you select your settings, the main one that you're going to mess with is if you want to change that default landing page, we're going to hit save. You can add an assistant or a transaction coordinator, but there is a fee for that, I believe. So just know that if you have a TC, you can add them in, but there's usually a fee. Yeah, if we hit invite new, I think it'll prompt us. Yes, the premium experience. Oh, look, I can become an elite agent and get a transaction coordinator for $0. So you can now add your transaction coordinator for free. Woohoo, magic. So you can do that there. All right, there's settings. Any questions about settings? All right, we're going to head back over to transactions. So I'm just going to click on the toolbar on the top. Thank you, Bree. And I'm going to show you how to set up your templates. And you're like, Amy, why templates? Well, templates come in handy. So we're going to click on templates here. Maybe. And then down to forms and checklists, I guess. And there's a couple different ways. So your templates are utilized for your default settings. And you can have them set up for lots of different types of properties. So you may have like a default listing template. You may have a default single family residence purchase. It may be a single family regular. You may have a condo purchase. It may be country property. So there's lots of different options. You may set up like a short sale template, or you may set a listing multifamily template. So whatever it is that you utilize on a regular basis, this is a good place to set it up. Now, the trick is when we go to set up our new templates, I'm going to hit new here in the upper left-hand corner. And it's going to say, hey, do you want a new template for a listing or an offer or a lease listing? So let's say we're going to do a new listing template, since I don't have one of those. And we're going to call it a single family regular listing. And then you want to select what kind of property you're going to apply this to: residential, industrial, multi-unit, condo, right? So I'm going to say, hey, this is going to be residential. And this auto apply feature is really important. Okay, and this is why. We only want one template to auto apply, if any. Okay, if we don't want to automatically apply, we leave the first bubble push, which says, hey, it's not going to automatically apply it. And I'll show you how that comes into play here in a minute. We can have it apply this template to new listing residential new transactions, or to all new transactions, which we purchase and sale transactions. So since I'm creating my first listing template, I'm going to say, hey, automatically apply this template to new listing or residential, listing residential new transactions. Okay. If you pick more than one to be applied to listing residential new transactions, it's going to apply multiple templates in there. It's going to get really confusing really fast, I promise. Or if you select automatically apply this template to all new transactions, whether you open up a purchase or a listing, it's going to apply that in there. Okay. And then you're really going to be confused. So if when in doubt, you can hit do not automatically apply it, then you just have to select it. Okay. So that's how that works there. And we're going to hit save. Okay, now it's going to add that in there, and it's going to open it up for us once it saves. And it's going to take us to what feels like where we would go in to write an offer or a listing agreement, like a regular transaction file. But notice here at the top, it's got this yellow bar that says you're modifying a listing template. Click here if you want to create a new listing transaction. Doesn't happen very often, but sometimes we get people that get confused. And they go into their templates to select the template, and then they start editing it for their offer or their listing. And now you've put those changes into stone. Once you save it to a template, that's what gets pulled up on the next time that you go to write an offer or a listing transaction. So from here, this is where once you're inside the template, we can select what forms we want to include in our listing template. So I normally have the residential listing agreement, the RLA, and we want the RLA exclusive. Okay, in addition to the residential listing agreement in my listings, here's some bonus information today. I include the DIA, which is the Disclosure Information Advisory. I include the Market Conditions Advisory, the MCA. I include the WCMD, which is the Water Conserving Plumbing Fixtures and Carbon Monoxide Disclosure Notice. I really wish they would change these two. And the WHSD, SD, which is the water heater and smoke detector. I really think the smoke detector and the carbon monoxide need to be combined, and the water heater and water conserving plumbing fixtures should be combined, but that's just me and I'm not in charge of the forms. So just seems weird. All right, I also include the SBSA, which is the Statewide Buyer and Seller Advisory. And notice in your car forms library here, you can search by acronym, or I could have searched by name. So if I want, the other one that I include is the Wildfire Disaster Advisory, the WDA. So I can search by partial name, by acronym. There's lots of different ways that it will pull up. Let me think about if there's anything else I normally include with this. Oh, the square footage lot size. So the SFLS. I'll get there eventually. So all those get included on my template. That's what I send out with my listing agreement. The things that I don't send out with my listing agreement would be like the lead-based hazard disclosure, the transfer disclosure statement, the seller property questionnaire, My Avid does not go out with my listing agreement, and the earthquake hazards for properties built before 1965, the lead-based paint hazard would be for properties built before 1978. Those I send out through Glide, because Glide walks the seller through all the questions that they need to fill out. So those I don't send out this way. I just send out the ones that just require a signature through my ZipForms when I send out that listing agreement. Okay, so now that I put all these in here, these are now part of that listing template. So anytime I pull the listing template into a transaction, it's going to automatically pull all these forms into there. The other thing that you can do is, like, if you're like, man, I do most of my business in Solano County and there's a Solano County regional disclosure, I can come in here to all forms. No, I can hit add document up here in the upper left-hand corner, the light pan toolbar just below the green R. We can hit add document. I can hit browse for document on my computer. Browse for a file. If it's saved to your computer, so you can go online if you're like, Amy, what is that? It's you if you Google Solano County Regional Real Estate Disclosure, it will come up. So we go downloads, and we're going to go Solano County. REGIONAL. Let's see if it comes up. I'm sure it's saved in here someplace. All right, I don't see it. So I'm just going to pick one just so you can see what that looks like. We're going to take and add this one in here. So it would need to be PDF. You would click it. You can update the display name. So you might call it like Solano County Real Estate Disclosure instead of the Solano County Regional Disclosure and Advisory Addendum, I think is its official name. And then we hit OK. Now that's saved that PDF to my documents as well as everything else. Or if there's something that needs to be included from our brokerage, like the PG&E disclosure or something to that effect, you could save that into this transaction file as well. Okay, does everybody understand how that works? Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Now, why is this important? Not only is it going to pull over the documents, but if you open up the documents, we're going to open them in the new forms editor. This one, the classic one, it's going away. So if you've tried to use it, stop using it. Use the new forms editor. It's better anyways. This is how you edit any of your forms. So this is functioning the same as if I were inside a transaction. I'm just setting it up as a template right now. So other than that, it's functioning just like it would if I was creating a regular transaction. So here it's going to add that document in here for me to edit. If you, well, I'll show you in a minute, but we opened up the forms editor. It's got the residential listing agreement. If we wanted to edit more things, all we have to do is come down here and find them that were already part of our transaction. We click on those 6 little dots on the left-hand side of the name of the document. It should give us a little hand. You click on it and you can drag it up into your transaction. I clicked too many times, so now I've got windows popping up. That's what happens late at night. Come on, there we go. All right, right? So you can drag stuff in. Same thing, you can click on those 6 dots and drag it back out. So you can add documents that way into the editing box. This is the documents that we're actually editing. We can hit add here, the little blue button with the add. If there was one that we forgot to put into the transaction, that's going to say, hey, do you want to add a form or document? We can say, hey, we want to add it from our forms library. We're going to make sure we have the California Association of Realtors form there. And then you can search for the form to add it into your document. So like TDS. Oops. Transfer disclosure statement. And then you would click the add button, and now it's going to add it over here for you to edit and added it to your transaction. You can do the same thing with that add. You can add it not only from your forms library, but you could upload a document here as well. And again, you can do this inside your transaction if you were actually drawing up a listing agreement too. If we close out of here, and then go to reopen it. Let's say that I close out. I don't know if it'll do it now. Well, let's try it. Let me put something in here real quick. Okay, so like I'm going to click these boxes for seller because this is a listing. This is where we put Realty One Group Fox. Right? This is where you'd put your name and you would put in your license number. You would also put the license number for the brokerage, which I don't remember what it is off the top of my head. So we're just going to pretend it's there. I'm going to hit the little save button, even though it usually auto saves for me, just to make sure it's saved. And then if I hit back, it's going to take me back to that transaction file. Okay, I'm just going to show you what happens in case you close out and you go to reopen it again in that new editing software. It's going to give you an option. So let's say I got distracted. I needed to go do something else. So I closed out of that file. Hopefully it's going to take me all the way back to the beginning. So kind of it. I really appreciate that. We're going to wait patiently. We're going to appear to wait patiently. All right, here we go.
Question.
Yeah, ask your question.
So for ZipForms, that's kind of what we use for, I guess, most of the general forms that we're gonna have people be signing, and then like Glide is more for like when the questions. I haven't gotten a chance to get into the Glide yet, but I just wanted to know kind of like what's the difference between the two.
Yeah. So ZipForms is where all of our forms are housed. It's where our California Association of Realtor forms are housed. We can edit them, send them out for signatures from here. So this is your main library. You can do everything through here. However, Glide is a secondary program. It's something we have access to through Berries. It's one of our benefits through Berries, through the MLS. And that does give us the option to be able to do things that have questions, to send those out to our buyers or our sellers for them to answer. And it does it in a better format. If I send out the TDS from here digitally for a seller to sign, it's going to put all these check boxes on there and give all these options, but it's really easy for a seller to skip answering a question, to answer it with a yes and a no versus one or the other, or to skip giving an explanation, which they're required to do if they mark yes on like a TDS or an SBQ question. They're required to give an explanation. If I send it out through here, they can skip over those things. Versus if I send it out through Glide, it takes them through, it walks them through that disclosure information advisory, talks to them about how they should fill it out. If they're in doubt, mark yes, put an explanation there. And then it only takes them through like a small question block at a time, like 4 or 5 questions, and then takes them to the next one. And if they mark yes on anything, it's going to ask them, oh, what do you want to say about that type thing? So it makes it easier for the sellers to complete it in its entirety without skipping anything.
Got it. Okay, that clarifies that definitely. So a lot more people tend to lean towards Glide.
I wouldn't say, I don't know that a lot more people tend to lean towards Glide. However, I would highly recommend leaning towards Glide and doing it the right way.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
How's that for an answer?
That's a that's a perfectly fine answer for me. I'm just getting into it, so.
Perfect. I'm trying to train you right. You can also do your agent visual inspection through Glide, which is fabulous because you can have the Glide app on your phone. You can go to the property. You can actually take pictures of the defects and stuff that you're noting in there. You're not limited by the number of lines on an Avid. And then it'll put them all in there with text overflow addendum. So it's a really fabulous tool to be able to freely do your Avid without feeling constricted by space.
Got it. Okay, I'm gonna definitely make sure to put that on my attendance sheet. What to go over for next class. Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. I think we do have a class on Glide at some point in the next couple months, but do put it on your attendance sheet next time as well to make sure that it's covered. All
Awesome. I will make sure to sign up for that class.
right. Perfect. So if we close out of the transaction, we want to reopen it and go back to where we left off. If I select one of the forms that we were looking at, which was like the residential listing agreement, and we say, hey, open it in that new forms editor, it usually asks, let's see if it does. It usually asks, do you want to open a new workspace or do you want to resume your existing workspace? This one didn't give me the option today because it's not participating, but normally you get the option, and just know that if you hit resume, it's going to go back to wherever you were working previously with all the documents that were added versus, oh, here we go. Versus if we start a new workspace, it's just going to pull this one document in and we start all over. Not necessarily with the edits, whatever we edited is going to be there, but it's not going to pull all the additional documents in that we did. So if I hit open my previous, it tells me, hey, that's going to be your residential listing agreement and the market conditions advisory. Versus if I do new, it's just going to pull in the residential listing agreement. So that's what it's asking when you go to log it back in with a document you've already been working on, in case you want to pull up everything that you were previously working on. Okay, and you'll notice that no matter which way I go, whatever I put in there is still there. So like this information, and that's how you're going to use these templates. So something, I wouldn't put the seller's names here because that's going to change with each transaction, but I did check the seller's boxes so that in the future, I never have to check those boxes again. And then I would put my information in here because my information is going to be the same on every transaction. So that's what you're looking for. You're not going to put in like dates or purchase prices or list price or anything like that. You're just looking to fill in the things that would take time to fill in the future. That's how templates work. So like on a listing agreement, I wouldn't put in the date prepared. I wouldn't put in the seller's names. I'm not going to put in the beginning date or the ending date, or even the address or the parcel number. But I may, if I was setting up a mobile home or manufactured home template, then I could check this box that, hey, it's a mobile home. And then I would save that as my mobile home template because that box was checked. If I had normal terms in here that I always include, we could set that up. So let's say that I put, let's see if I saved it as a clause. The other thing that you can set up in here are templates. Nope. For your clauses. So I'll show you that here in a second, but we're going to put in, usually what I do with my listing agreements, because oftentimes I'm getting them signed in advance, is I'm going to put a listing price to be reviewed within 10 days before going on market. So I'm going to save that in there so that that's always pops up on my listing forms because I usually use that. If whatever you're going to put as your commission, you can set that up as well. So you can check that box and you can fill in your number there. Remember that at Realty One Group, we aren't restricted by what we can charge a seller. It's totally up to us. And remember also that Ed recommends too, that now we say, you know, this is what I charge to list the property. And then we also pay something to the other agent often and let the seller kind of negotiate that price of what they're going to pay you and what they pay an cooperating agent that's bringing a buyer the other way. So you can put that in there. So that's what you're going to fill in. So you'd go through all your forms, fill in all those things that are like the defaults. Hey, I'm going to fill this out every time, leave it. Then we save it. And then we go back. And then we're like, oh, my listing template is done. Okay, let's say we went through all those forms. Okay, so now what happens is, let's say I finished that template and got it all set up how I wanted it to be set up. Now, if I go to transactions, and now let's say that I had a listing, we would hit inside of transactions, not templates, transactions. Just waiting for the spinning wheel of death. We're going to hit new. I'm going to hit new listing. You can name your listings and your purchases however you want to in here. It's totally up to you, but just so you know, I normally name my listings with the street address. And I normally name my purchases with the last name of the buyer and then purchase. So if I was setting up a new listing, I would call it 123 Sample Street. And then you can plug in the actual property address here. You're going to make it a residential property if that's what you're getting ready to put a listing agreement for. I don't mess with the statuses. I leave all of mine as active because, again, I don't track my transactions through ZipForms. I just use this for the forms library. And then notice down here, it says templates automatically applied by the admin. It says single family residential listing done. Okay. If that's not what I wanted, I could come in here to templates and I could be like, oh, I want something else. And I could pick something else. Okay. But I do want the listing agreement or the single family residential listing, which is the one we were just working on, applied. So I'm going to do that and then hit save. I think it'll let me save without an address. And then it's auto applying the template for a listing residential to transaction. So the template that we were just working on, it's applying that to this transaction. So magically, when I go into documents, it's going to have, if we wait patiently, maybe. I believe in you. It says there's no documents, but I know they're there. We're going to try this again. All right, it's really unhappy with me today. So I'm going to go here where it says apply template. And I'm going to say, hey, I want the single family residential listing applied. And we're going to hit apply again. One or more, continue. Well, normally it pulls over all my documents from that transaction. I don't know why it's not working tonight, probably because I'm trying to show somebody something. So let's go back to the list. I just hit the little back to list button. I'm going to close out and reopen it again because I think it'll magically appear when we reopen. Usually it shows up right away. However, today it's not participating. So let's second time. To open that transaction, I just click on it while we're waiting for it to load. The other thing too that I do with like a purchase, because you may write multiple offers for one buyer, we may write an offer, it doesn't get accepted. I use file over and over and over again. I just revise the purchase agreement for that buyer with the new property information. So I don't have a file for a buyer for each property they write an offer on. That might make it helpful for you or might not. We're going to say a little prayer that our documents magically appear now. Otherwise, I'm going to select a different template and we're going to make it a purchase. Oh, there we go. Look at that. Just like it should have. It should pulled up everything that was in that template. I don't know why it wasn't working initially, but it's working now. So if at first you don't succeed, go back to your transaction list by hitting that green button, back to list, and reopen it, and it'll magically happen. That's right, Bree. That's how I feel right now. All right. So here it pulled in all those documents that we just edited inside that template. And if I click on the residential listing agreement to pull that up into the forms editor, I'll show you that all those changes that we made are also going to be on that form already preloaded for us. So it makes it super easy for us to go in there, fill in the last few things for the listing agreement, and then send it off to our sellers for signatures. All right. So as we scroll down just a little bit, as it's loading, see, oh, it blew it up. See, it's got my boxes checked, Realty One group in there, all my brokerage information's there. As you scroll to the listing agreement, those things that we filled out here, they're magically auto-populated in, so I don't have to type that stuff in all the time. Magic? Magic. Okay. So that's how the templates get applied. That's why it's important to spend some time setting up your templates. You may want to wait a couple transactions until you fill out your templates, or you could go back through some of my previous trainings on the YouTube channel. I do have trainings where I show you how to set up like a purchase template. I don't know that I have a listing one in there. I may, but I do go over the listing agreement. So that would be a good time. You could kind of follow along and set up your template. You can always go in there and change it. So know that it's not stuck in stone. So if there's something you decide you don't like, you just go back into your templates and you change it. So to get out of this editing, I should have shown you how to, well, We'll go back to that here in a second. Got plenty of time. All right. I'm going to make myself a little note. Sorry, I remember to show you how to set up clauses. Okay. I'm going to go back into the editing. I'm going to show you how to send it for signatures. This screen here, this document screen, this works exactly the same as when we were inside the editing or inside the templates. It's the same thing. It's just now we're in transactions instead of templates, but it looks very much the same. If we wanted to change templates, we would just hit apply templates and then we could override the existing template to something else. You still have the option to add documents. That's where you could add like a PDF document. So let's say that you sent a offer off to somebody. Or maybe we have a listing here like we do, and somebody made an offer to us, and now we want to upload the residential purchase agreement that they sent us for signatures. Super easy to do that. So let's say that we drew up our listing agreement. We got an offer on the property and we want to send off a counter offer. All we would do is come over here to all forms on the right-hand side. We're going to click that button. It's going to open this up. Here's where we would find, that's where we could add forms to the transaction. We're going to find the counter offer, and this is going to be seller counter offer number 1. I'm just going to click it. Once it's highlighted blue, that means that form is already in your transaction. Okay, so that means it's been added successfully. You can either X out of that box or just click on this regular window and it'll close the document list. So now we have the seller counter offer here. And then let's say that we want to pull into the transaction. We can do it one of 2 ways. We can either do it right here. We can hit add document to pull in that residential purchase agreement. We're going to hit browse for a document. I'm going to go to my computer now to browse for a file. I'm going to search for RPA. I'm going to go to downloads. I'm sure there's one hiding in here someplace. Residential purchase agreement. There we go. All right. So we're going to pull that in. You may decide to change it and put that it was like, maybe the last name of the buyers was, I'm not feeling very creative tonight. I'm sorry. We're going to call it Martinez, because that's what happens when I'm not creative. I look at the screen. So we're going to hit in Martinez RPA and hit OK. So you can rename it. It's got the little spinning wheel here showing that it's adding, and now it's there. All right, so it's adding both that document into our file. So there's our residential purchase agreement. So that's one way that we can add it. Now, if we want to edit both the seller counter offer and the RPA at the same time, we can check those boxes on beside each document that we want to pull in and edit. And then we come up here to the top and it says open in Forms Editor. We just click that little button, and now it's going to pull it over into the Forms Editor so that we can edit both of those documents at once. We're not actually going to edit the residential purchase agreement, except we're going to add an X to it, and I'll show you how to do that. But we want to edit that counter offer to be whatever the terms were of the counter offer. So we're going to say counter offer number 1. So to edit things, we just click on the gray boxes. That means you can fill it out. We're going to say this is a residential purchase agreement. It was dated yesterday's date. This is where you put the buyer's names and the seller's names. Then you'd put terms here of the counter. Oops. And then if there's any additional things you're including with that counter, you would put it here, the expiration date, then we're good with that. And then we have our residential purchase agreement here. So now let's say that we're like, oh, perfect, this is good. We want to send it for signatures. Oh, second thing. If we wanted to add a document from our computer, maybe we didn't add the residential purchase agreement yet. We got here and we're like, oh, I need my buyer to sign that purchase agreement. We could add it here by just clicking that add button, just like we did under the templates. We could hit upload and we could drag or browse for that residential purchase agreement on our computer, pop it into here and upload it to the file so we can add it that way as well. Okay. We can, on the residential purchase agreement, on the last page of that purchase agreement, if you're going to counter it, you need to put a little X in there. saying that there's going to be a counter offer. All right, so here's the buyer's offer. They sign it. Here's where the sellers sign it. So if there was going to be a counter offer, the way that you can add an X right here is that we can come into tools over here on the right-hand side and see it gives us the option of a text box. We're going to click text box. I'm going to click over here by the seller counter offer. It's going to add a text box. I'm going to put an X there and then put that over the, move it, drag it over the seller counter offer box, saying that we're including a seller counter offer. If you click on this box, you can adjust the font size, you can adjust the color, and you can adjust the font family. You can also make it bold or italic. So you've got some options there to adjust that text. And then that X will stay there. Any questions about that? Okay. Perfect. All right. So now if we go back to forms, that's where we started. We can go there. So now if you're like, okay, I think we're ready. I need to send this for signatures. There's two ways to do that as well. One is inside of the editing documents right here where we're at. We can click this blue button here that says prepare for signing. We're going to click that little button and it's going to prepare these documents for signing based on the program that you have selected as your default signing software that we showed you in settings. Please enter a valid property address. Oh, hold on. I need a valid property address. Okay, you can scroll like I'm doing here, or if we click on seller counteroffer, it takes us back to that document. So that's the quickest way to get there. I need a 123 Sample Street in Vacaville, California. All right, Sample Street's my favorite street. It doesn't actually exist. All right, so there we go. So now let's try that again. We're going to hit prepare signing. All right, here's where you can choose your signing name and you can select a return folder. So when I select a signing name, I do update this. This one I'm going to leave alone because it says seller counter offer. Nobody's going to really see this, I don't think, except for you. It just lets you know what was in that signing packet. So I leave it at seller counter offer. If I was sending the listing agreement, I would call it listing agreement. If I was sending something out like disclosures for signatures, I might call it like seller disclosures. So whatever's in there is kind of what I name it so that I know when I look at that folder what it is. The return folder, I never select a return folder. It's just going to create its own signing folder. So I'm just going to leave that alone. And then I'm going to hit create once I'm happy with that page. It's going to open up that AuthentiSign that I told you you can use. It's free. It comes with the ZipForms membership. It's super easy to use. It's going to open this up in now what's called AuthentiSign. From here, we're going to start with adding the signers. So you want to hit add participants. If you had these saved in your transaction, I'll show you how to do that as a party in your transaction. You could hit add from transaction, and then it would pull up like, hey, here's, oh, look, we already have that. We're going to send this for seller signature. So we're going to click the seller one box. So I named my seller one, but it identifies that they're listed on the transaction as seller one. And then the type, are they remote signer? Are they a reviewer, or are they CC? So most of the time it's going to be remote signer, but maybe you've got a situation where like you've got a VA husband and wife and only one of them is on the loan, the other one is not. The other spouse may still want to see those documents. So you may add them as a reviewer or as a CC, so they get a CC copy. You can also add the other agent on the transaction as a CCer. So when it's all done, they'll get a copy of it. However, I don't like delivering my documents that way. I don't think it's the best way to do it. So we would add from transaction here, select who you want, hit select. And then if we wanted to add additional participants, it's giving me a red box here because they don't have an email address. We would hit add participants. We could hit add new because maybe the spouse isn't part of the transaction. Here's where you could add spouse one and their email. Spouse one at gmail.com. And then enter their role. If they don't have a role, you can just leave it blank. So if they're just like, oh, they're just reviewing it, we just leave it like that. If we don't want to have to type this in every time we want to go send a signature, we want to click this box here to save to my contact list. And you can also add them to the transaction as well, so that they'll come up every time on the transaction list. Here's where you could set up the remote signer. I normally don't add a signing pin. I don't have that level of security. Oh, but this one is a spouse. They're not actually signing. They're going to review the documents. So we're going to add them as a reviewer here. Okay. And then I'm going to hit save. And now we've got the seller one for signer and spouse one as a reviewer. Now up here, it gives me a set signing order. If I turn that on, when it sends this out, it's going to send it first to seller one. And then after seller one signs it, then it's going to send it to spouse one for review. And then it's going to mark it as completed. Okay, if we had multiple sellers, it would send it to seller one and then seller two, and then the reviewer, whatever order they're in, that's how they're going to send it. And it's only going to send it to one at a time. If we take this off, which is how I usually live with that off, it sends it to everybody at the same time, which means we don't have to wait for seller one to sign, for seller two to sign. The spouse doesn't have to wait for seller one to sign to review the documents. They all get a link at the same time. They can all sign at the same time. I think it's much cleaner that way. It keeps everybody happy. They can look at it at the same time, and they may be able to answer each other's questions. So I like it that way. You can choose what you want to do. The only time I usually use a signing order is if I've got like buyers or sellers, spouses, or more than one buyer or more than one seller, and they're using the same email address. Then oftentimes I'll set it up for a signing order, because then it keeps it less confusing because it's going to the same inbox. So it'll prompt one of them to open it to sign. Then it'll send a second email after the first person signs, so that the second person can sign. So that's usually how I use that set signing order. This one here, it's got a red exclamation point because I don't have an email. So if I just click on that one, it opens it back up so I can add an email, seller1@gmail.com. All right, we can hit update transaction contact. That means it'll save that email into the transaction so that I don't have to type it in the future. Okay, and then we're going to hit save. Okay, any questions so far about setting the signers up?
None here.
All right. Fabulous. The next line item is documents. That just shows you what documents are set up for signing. If we were like, oh man, I forgot that one, we could just hit add document or form. It's going to default to adding something from the transaction. You can upload or import, or you could pull it from your saved files. Okay, so maybe I want to add the market conditions advisory. We just click the add button. Now it's got a green check mark. And then we hit the close button once we're satisfied. So now it's got all those there. You can also reorder them. So if you don't like the order in which these files are placed, you can either renumber them here, or you can click those little dots and you can drag them around. Okay, reordered. The next line item is going to be tools. That's going to be how we're actually going to do our signatures. So if you notice here on the seller counteroffer, it's already applied the seller signature box, because this is a form, a new form we just pulled out of the Car Forms library, and it's smart enough to recognize where the signatures need to go. Okay, it's going to do the same thing on this market conditions advisory. It's going to put that seller signature, just so you know, even if I pulled them all out, if I sent this like the listing agreement out or whatever, I still scroll through every page and make sure the signature blocks are where they belong. I'm a little paranoid like that, so I just quickly scroll through, make sure the signature lines are on each page where they belong. Now, this document got pulled over because it was one that I uploaded. So this one does not have signature boxes. So if I wanted to add a signature box, I'm just going to scroll to that last page of the residential purchase agreement where we checked that box. Should be close. All right. All right, so remember we added that little checkbox there on the seller counteroffer, so that's still there. And then if I want to add the seller signature, I just click where it says the sign here. I'm just going to click that over and I'm going to put it on the seller signature line. Maybe. It's thinking hard. Oh, I made it angry. All right, let's try this. There we go. It put it in the wrong spot because I was having difficulty. So you can just click and drag it to the right spot. There's also a date line here. I'm going to put that there. Now, normally, if I just pulled that signature line over, it's going to put the date right next to the signature. I don't care. As long as the date's on there, it doesn't matter whether it's after the date or after the signature. It just needs to be on there. And if I wanted to put the printed name of seller, because it's not showing up here, we can come over here on the signer fields down here where it says full name. We would just click and drag that over to that line, and then it'll print the seller's name for us so that we don't have to type it in. If we had forgotten to put this X here, you can come over here with tools. It's got a text box down here at the bottom. So you could select that text box. We just click it. We would click it over here, and it's going to operate very much like inside of the editing where you can add that X in there. And then you can click, you can drag it around. If we don't want it anymore, we can delete it. So you've got some options there to be able to add text or highlight or a circle. You can input in the full name, the date, the email address, the time, and then you've got options up here for signatures, initials, checkbox, text line. This text line up here would prompt the seller to actually fill something in versus this one down here. I get to put something in right now, and that's what goes into that text box. So those are your options there. Here's your initial and then initial pages. Any questions about how to use those tools? Okay, if there was more than one seller up here, we can toggle between the seller's names. So if I had more than one signer selected, which I don't on this one, here, let's go back to signers. We're going to hit add participants. I'm going to add from transaction. I'm going to add myself as the listing agent and hit select. There we go. Now it's got me added in there. So now, so because I added a new signer on here myself, it's saying, hey, do you want to assign signature blocks? So what it's saying is, hey, on the documents that I know what they are, do you want me to automatically put the listing agent's signature on there? And you're going to say, yeah, let's do that. Assign signature blocks. So now it's going to automatically apply that where it needs to go. But there was no place on those the documents above where it would go. But here, if I go back to tools, I can now toggle to my name. And here it gives me green boxes. So now I could add my signature on here if I wanted to. Or if I was like, oh man, that was supposed to be the seller's signature. If I click on this box, I can come up here and select seller 1. And now it'll change that box over to the seller's signature instead of mine. So if you mess something up, you don't have to delete it and redo it. We can just click on it and change it. Okay. Super simple. Once we've selected all of our signatures on here, we think everything is good. Then we're going to hit the next button. And that's going to prepare to send it out for signatures. Maybe. When it catches up. There we go. Oh, let's wait. You can do it, AuthentiSign. There we go. All right, so here's the finalize the signing setup. This is saying, hey, when's this signature packet going to expire? It sets it up like a month out, and you can set it up so it sends them a reminder to sign every day at 9 a.m. They'll get a reminder email to, hey, remember to sign those documents. You can also customize the invites here. If you click on that, it'll allow you to type in messages to each individual signer that the packet's going to. And then once you're ready, you're going to hit send. And I'm going to send that even though it's going to bogus emails because I want to show you how to edit the packet once it's been sent. And you probably won't remember what I'm going to say on how to edit it, but you'll remember Amy said there was some way to edit that packet. So you'll remember that much. All right, so it's going to close out once we hit send. It closes us out and takes us back to our transactions. The other way to e-sign, I said there was two ways to e-sign. So there's that one, once you're inside the forms editor, you can go straight into prepare to sign. Or if we just had documents that we didn't need to edit, they just needed to go out for signatures. From this line item here, we would just select the documents that we want to sign. And then you would come up here to the gray bar where it says e-sign, and you would click on that. And then it's going to walk you through setting up that signature packet from here instead of inside of the editing software, but it's going to look the same as where you can add the signers and documents and stuff in there. Okay, we just won't be able to edit the documents. Okay, and now with nothing checked, if we wanted to see what was going on with that e-signature, I actually lied. Once, if you have the documents selected to send them out for signature, we would click this one here. That's going to create a signing packet with these 3 documents. Okay. If we wanted to check on the signature packets that we already sent out, then we would come up here to the gray toolbar. So this green one here is to send something out for signatures. This one here is for checking on existing ones or previous packets that have been completed. So if we click on this e-sign history, it's going to pull up and tell us that it's been sent. You can resend invitations. So if somebody's like, I didn't get the invitation, you can resend it. You can go into signing details, which tells you when you open Cell, it'll tell you who has signed, whether they've authenticated it. That means they've opened it. And if they've approved it, they've completed the signing process. If we need to edit somebody's email because we typed it in incorrectly, we can do it from here. We just fix the email. We call it seller 2. You're going to hit the little save button. And then it's going to resend it to the correct email automatically. Okay, so that's inside there how you can do that. If you made an error and you need to void out the packet or add something to the packet before they start signing it, we're going to hit the reset button. I know that feels wrong. We're going to hit reset. This will reset the data. Do you wish to proceed? Well, we're going to say yes. Oh, you know what that did? That didn't actually edit it. That just, well, it did. It's going to allow you to edit it, but it's going to prompt, if somebody has signed, it's going to make them re-sign, which they needed to do anyways. It's going to reopen up that signing window so that we could add documents, we could change the information, do whatever we needed to do. Now, if you were doing this so that you could cancel the signing packet, maybe they changed what they wanted to offer, they changed what they wanted to put on the counter offer, then what we're going to do is we're going to hit reset. Once it opens this window, we're going to hit back. We can hit save, don't save, it really doesn't matter. That's going to take us back to the transaction. All right. Then we're going to go back into e-sign once it loads. Now, remember we opened this the first time, it said sent on that little envelope. Now our little envelope is going to say draft. And from here, we can click on this and we can hit delete. So it didn't give us the delete option until we hit the reset button. So when we hit reset, it allows us to edit the packet. It also allows us to come back out and delete the packet. Okay, so that's how you delete a signing packet that you no longer wish to have. Okay, any questions about that?
Nope.
Fabulous. All right, the other thing that I told you I would show you is on templates. We're going to hit forms and checklists. Is you can set up templates for your clauses. So when we're inside of templates, up here on the top, it says clauses where we hit new. Next to that is clauses, upper left-hand corner. If we click on that, it's going to pull up, and these would just be like, think of a clause as a statement. So here's our personal clauses that we've created. We've got like home warranty, listing photos, and inspection. So let's say, remember I had that statement about revising the list price. I can hit new clause, category. We're going to call it forms 2.0 clause title. We're going to call it list price review. And then the text for that one would be listing price to reviewed within 10 days of on market dates. And then we're going to save that. So now in the future, I actually type that again. I can just pull over the clause, and I'll show you what that looks like. We're going to close out of there. I'm going to go back to my transactions. I'm going to open up that transaction that we were in. I should have opened a different one so I could show you what it looks like, but that's all right. This will work. It's 8 o'clock and I'm almost done. And then I'm going to show Shauna, once we're done here, how to function inside of ZipForms. So if you want to stay on, you're welcome to after we finish our ZipForms training. So then I'm going to go to documents. Oh, I have two things to show you. No thanks. The blue wheel of terror. All right, we're going to open up the listing agreement into a editor space so you can see how the clause gets applied inside the editor. We're going to start a new workspace. So because I start new workspace, it's only going to pull in that listing agreement, not the other forms that we had pulled in. So now if I wanted to add a clause, just going to scroll back down to that line. Maybe I wanted to add something here. We can hit add clause. So anytime there's a text fill in, we can hit add clause. And then we can come into our personal clause library and I could say, hey, I want the listing price review clause to be in there. So it does that and we put insert. Now I didn't have to type it. It just adds it in there like magic and it saves. So things that we save and say on a regular basis, we can pull it in there that easy by saving it. Let's see, personal. So maybe I want it to be photos and inspections. That goes on my listing agreement somewhere. Oh, there, it's at the bottom because I've got too many lines going. There we go. It would pull in that clause for me. So that's how you can utilize and save those clauses. You save them under the templates and then they become accessible to you inside of your transaction. I think you can actually, if we go to clauses here, we can create the clause here as well. So you can hit create clause and then save it to your personal ones. And then that'll save it to your clause library as well. So you can save it on the go. There you go. Any questions about those clauses? All right. Sean, a question?
Oh, no.
Okay. Save changes. No. All right. The other thing that you'll want to do anytime you open a new transaction, when you're inside that transaction field, where you can add documents and such to it, is we want to set up our parties. That's probably one of the more important things that you can do. You can also MLS connect, which I'll walk you through in a future training. The things just add up. Maybe I'll show you now how to do it. It won't take very long, I promise. So 2 things and then we'll be done. And then ZipForms. All right, the first thing here is parties. So we have, it usually opens us up to summary, and then there's the parties tab. I usually hop on over to the documents tab. Come on, spinning wheel of terror. There we go. If we click on the parties tab, this is where you can add in your buyers or your sellers, whoever the parties are to the transaction, with their email address so that you can enter it once and be done with it. And once we enter the party in here, like if we enter in a seller 2, any forms that we pull in from the library are going to automatically populate with these names. So maybe I want to add a seller 2. I just find it down here on seller 2. I can click it there. It's going to open up a new window and say, oh, who is seller 2? The only thing that I'm going to put in here is the seller's actual name, their first name and their last name, or however they want to be addressed. This should be their legal name as it should appear on the agreement. And then we want to make sure to put in an email address, seller2@gmail.com, because you're going to need the email address to send out signatures. And if you put it in here, it will save it forever to this transaction. If you want to save it for your address book, these are maybe people that you're going to do business with in the future, we can save to the address book, and then we hit save. Now seller 2 is going to be in there as a party to the transaction. So when I go into like set up the e-signatures, when I go to send the documents out for signing, it's going to give me an option of seller 1 and seller 2. It's also going to auto-populate the seller 2 onto all the documents where it says seller 2. So usually when I open up a new transaction, I start with the parties and then I go into the documents. Yeah, everybody good there? The other thing that you can do inside of ZipForms, which is really handy, not so much for listings, but more so for purchases, is you can do an MLS Connect, and it'll prompt you for this on the main page. When you open up the new transaction, it'll ask for the email, or not the email, the property address, and then right to the right of the property address line, it'll say MLS Connect. If you click that MLS Connect, it allows you to put in your login credentials for the MLS. So you can select your MLS, user ID, password, and then you would pull in the listing ID. And you can say include property photo and then go find that property. There we go. I was like, I don't even know what it's pulling over. I just pulled what auto-populated. Oh, it's Vogel slang. And then you hit save. And now what it's going to do is it's going to pull in all the data from that listing into the transaction. So on a buyer transaction, it's going to automatically populate the listing agent's name, the listing agent's brokerage, the property address, the APN number, all that stuff that you would have to go and find. It's going to put all that into your transaction for you, so you no longer have to go look for it. So it's an amazing tool to utilize that MLS Connect. If, like I mentioned, like I might write an offer for a buyer, and then my buyer's offer doesn't get accepted. We go see some more properties. We're going to write another offer. I can reopen this file, go into MLS Connect, pull the new MLS number in there. It's going to ask if it wants me to override the data. I'm going to hit yes. It's going to pull in all the new listings information that we're going to write that new offer on. So I'm just going to override the existing one. And if you're like, Amy, doesn't that delete the file? It's not going to be a big deal, because what happens is when we send out that first offer, it saved the signed copy of it. I don't care about the unsigned copy, but it's going to save a copy of the signed file to that file. So here's what that's going to look like. Lying to me. There are documents to display. Wow, it's having to work really hard. All right, it's unhappy. So over here on the left-hand side, see, it's got all these folders. Those are signed documents that were in this file. So it makes it super easy. If I want to see this offer, If I click on that one, here's all the signed copies, which is why I can override the RPA, the residential purchase agreement, over and over and over again with the new offer. Because the signed copies here, and that's all I care about, is what did the buyer sign? And I have a copy of all of that right here. Make sense? I don't know why it's not pulling up the list of documents, though. It's really weird that my system's not participating, working too hard. All right, so that's how you navigate through ZipForms. That's how you set up your templates. You would check on the template box. You can set up any templates that you want. And then inside the transaction, how you add parties, documents, how you edit those documents, how you go in and send them out for signatures, how you edit the signature blocks. That's your overview of the functions inside of ZipForms. Any questions?
I really love that MLS Connect.
It's magical. It's magical.
It is.
Bree, your box says yes. Do you have a question?
Oh, no, I thought it was just like a green check mark because this was a very comprehensive like class on the whole thing. So
Good.
no questions.
Good. And it will be, it's recorded, it will get posted. So later on, if you're like, what did she do? It'll make more sense as you go through transactions and such.
Got it. And that's on the YouTube channel, correct?
Yeah, it'll get posted on the YouTube channel probably next week.
Awesome.